Hey, what's up guys? Rolling Sands here, and I want to introduce you to our new Sportster XRTT. In the early 60s, Harley-Davidson introduced the KRTT, which was a road racing version of their XR750 base power plant. They utilized, I think, a lot of what they learned originally on flat tracks to produce a motor that was capable of mid 140 miles an hour. That bike was always, to me, a very cool machine. It's something that I always really just liked the aesthetic. It was unapologetic in its kind of bulbous front fairing that was used to protect the rider at a place like Daytona International Speedway. I liked that it came from like flat track and it came from the Sportster. So when we had a customer that was interested in building a similar bike, it's a bike that I've always wanted to build, and cool to build it off an OG Sportster chassis. We started building this bike off of a Sportster 48, which had a little bit wider front end than your typical narrow glide Sportster. That allowed us to utilize the stock triple clamps on this bike and build spacers to carry this right side up Öhlins front fork. We put a single disc on it with a nickel Brembo race caliper with a 320 millimeter Galfer wave rotor. Give the thing a really nice aggressive brake system, topped off with the RSD radial mount master cylinder. This S&S exhaust system really came off their flat track bikes, but we want to do a high exhaust. We have some high performance Fox shocks. We've raised this bike up quite a bit to get the ground clearance we wanted. We utilized our Morris wheel, so this is a 17 3.5 front and rear Morris wheel. They're a modern version of the original Morris mag wheel, a wheel that was raced in Grand Prix racing back in the days by guys like Kenny Roberts, but also used on KRTTs and some of the old Harley race bikes and even some of the old flat trackers. So it's really cool to be able to use our modern interpretation and take the Morris on this KRTT. Dunlop Q5 tires. This is a fantastic street tire that also does double duty for racetrack and super sport activity. This tire is a 160/60. The front is a 120/60. This is an iconic paint job that came from Harley-Davidson. I talked to my painter, Chris Wood, and we had a little twist on it. Chris always does a fantastic job, and he knocked this one out of the park. We used a clip-on handlebar set like really midway between the top and the lower triple clamp to get the handlebars where they needed to be and placed in the fairing. This was probably one of the most complicated parts of the bike, was to get the fairing placed where it needed to be. This kit wasn't built for this bike. This kit was kind of like a generalized kit, and it was actually built for an older Sportster, so it took a lot of modifications to get the bodywork placed where it's supposed to be placed, where it looks like the original, but also is rideable. Like, as you can see, I sit on the bike. It's pretty tight. This is a tight package in here, you know? I mean, with the helmet on, you're gonna be right up against the bubble, which is how they wanted it at a place like Daytona back in the day. To get this thing to turn the way it's supposed to turn, we had to trim the fairing back quite a bit, but also get the clip-ons low enough so that you weren't catching your fingers on the fairing, and you were still going to be able to use the brakes, you know. Like, it's not quite a road racer, it has a little bit more steering than a road racer does, but also we wanted to make sure that you could ride your thing in a parking lot if you needed to, because it is a street bike. All these beautiful steel mounts that Aaron Boss, our chief fabricator, fabricated. All this bodywork came from AirTech streamlining. We moved the gauge mount to the top of the stock triple clamp. This says 120 miles an hour, but I'm thinking this thing's gonna be a little faster than that. RSD grips, traction foot pegs, RSD rear sets on it as well, RSD gas cap. Did a chain conversion on this bike. It's got a 530 golden black DID chain on it. Our friends at Salomon created this really nice seat for us. Underneath here is a custom gas tank. It was actually a stock Sportster tank that's been highly modified to get this top glass cover over it. It looks like a complete fuel tank. It is not a complete fuel tank. The original gas tank was big because they were racing Daytona back in the day, and they wanted to have a lot of fuel volume so that they could race and have less pit stops. We don't care as much about that. This is kind of an uncomfortable bike, I'm not gonna lie, so you don't want to spend hours on it. A couple hours, an hour's fine. Woo! 100 drive this thing on the street with no headlight. Look how she shakes. She's just all... One of the coolest things about these types of projects is talking to somebody about what they want to have happen and being able to deliver it. This did not start out as a sport bike, and it certainly didn't start out as a vintage sport bike, but now I think the average person would mistake this for an original KRTT road racer. I think customers are going to be pretty psyched. If you want to read more of the details and see some of the products that we use, you can check out the blog at RolandSandsDesign.com. And if you want to get a 74 shirt, go to our website and get a 74 shirt. You see the back? It's kind of sick.